Today I'm going to be sharing with you about shepherding the hearts of children. But ultimately, we shepherd the hearts of children to train them to be shepherded by the shepherd who will shepherd their hearts. So the Lord reminded me this morning of what an incredible responsibility we have to shepherd the hearts of these children and to lead them to the heart of the great shepherd so that he can shepherd their hearts. Sometimes I think we don't understand this privilege of preparing a generation. And I want to say, they are not the next generation. They are the now generation. And if we shepherd their hearts well, they are valuable contributors to the church life. This morning I was reading Psalm 78. It was the psalm I just happened to read, and it said, "Tell the coming generation." And this is what it says. It says, "Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth." And I want to see you guys being these people. It said, "I will open my mouth in a parable." When you teach these children, you are opening your mouth in parables. "I will utter dark sayings from the old that we have heard and known, that our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise to tell them to their children." And the end of that psalm ends like this, and speaking about God, but this is what we're ordained to do. It says, "With an upright heart he shepherded them and guided them with skillful hands." And the Lord is equipping you guys and asking you to shepherd these children with an upright heart and with skillful hands. And something of what we're doing today is training you in how to have skillful hands to shepherd the hearts of these children. I want you to understand that Jesus flipped culture on its head because he reestablished the value and identity of both women and children in his culture. And if we read in Mark chapter 19, verse 13 to 16, it says, "The little children and Jesus. People were bringing little children to Jesus for him to place his hands on them." Now you would understand how countercultural this was, because the disciples rebuked them. When Jesus saw this, he was indignant, and he said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them." A severe warning there for us not to hinder little children coming to Jesus. "For the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child," they're modeling something for us because they receive it without question, "will never enter it." And he took the children in his arms, placed his hands on them, and blessed them. What an incredible task he's given us. Actually, not just you, the village, to take these children in our arms and to bless them. See, their worth is not established in their age. It is established in the one who created them. And very often, we undervalue the role children have to play in the church because they're not adults. And very often, our church life is focused on the adults, and we don't see the children. But we're often saying, lambs are sheep too. And there is this potential for us sometimes to focus on shepherding adults and overlook the children. We are so aware that Jesus hears the worship and the prayers of children. It's an undervalued tool. When we're praying for people for healing in the church, sometimes it might be worthwhile calling kids to lay hands on them and pray, because their prayers are so pure. There's no baggage in the way. It's an undervalued tool. He didn't see children as insignificant and weak or hindrances. He didn't see them as a waste of time. Sometimes children's ministry can be viewed as a babysitting time. It's not a babysitting time. It's a time where you have the privilege of shepherding the hearts of children and preparing them to one day take leadership batons from this church, in this church. Sitting in your classes are the next elders and deacons and whatever, saints. But I tell you, the way you prepare them now is going to determine how they elder you later on. Prepare them to elder and lead well. Prepare them to serve well. Prepare those prophetic voices now well. Train and equip them. Training and equipping is not just for adults. We're training and equipping the children now to participate now in creating momentum now for City on a Hill. Shepherding children's hearts is much more than just transferring information to them. It's in impressing a truth on their heart. But you can only impress a truth on a child's heart when that child knows that they are seen and then they are loved. We're not just transferring. When you do that Sunday message with your kids, the lesson, you're not just transferring information. You're taking a truth and you're imprinting it on their hearts. When the kids leave your class time on a Sunday, what stamp has been left on their heart? Do they walk out formed more into the image of Christ? Or do they feel despondent and rejected because maybe you didn't take enough time to prepare well? And sometimes this happens that sometimes the kids have to help the teacher get the facts right about a story because they haven't prepared well. Remember this, God used children to do incredible things. If you look at this, it just struck me again. I've been reading Judges. Judges ends like this. It ends like this. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And then we have a little interlude of Ruth, and then a child breaks forth. And God uses a child, Samuel, from little to deliver a message that would change a nation. From barrenness was born life. From barrenness was born a prophetic voice came that changed a nation, and he used a child. He used a child to deliver a message to Eli, who was the high priest at that time, whose sons were misbehaving, Phineas and Hophni. And God said to him, I'm going to kill them. Tell Eli. And Eli called him because the Lord was speaking to Samuel. He called him a few times, Samuel, Samuel. And eventually he realized via Eli that the Lord was speaking to him because he'd never heard the Lord speak to him before. And he listened and he said, speak, Lord, for your servant hears. And the Lord told him what he was going to do. And then Samuel delivered that message. Do we have Samuels? We do have a Samuel amongst us. Do we have little Samuels now amongst us who even at that young age are hearing the Lord and have a message to deliver that could transform the face of this church? But sometimes they're little and we don't expect that to come from them. Papa, next is always more. So, how do we shepherd well? How do we shepherd them well? I know when I was born again 42 years ago or so, I was, the man leading our church at that stage was a guy called David Onions. Many of you probably wouldn't know him. I was born again into an Assembly of God church. But the one thing I have never forgotten, I was probably about 12 years old, is that man came to our house to pray for me to be filled with the Spirit. And I was filled with the Spirit that day. I have never forgotten the time he took to come to, he was the leader of that church, the time he took to come to our house to pray for me to be filled with the Spirit. What an incredible privilege we have of touching the lives of children. One of the first points I want to make is know the children by name. Know the children by name. Those kids in your congregation, not only those in your kids' church, know them by name. Don't just look through them. See them. Treat them as individuals, not just a part of a whole. You know, when families walk into the church, we hi to the mum and the dad and then we just like the kids are just not there, you know. We often do that. We look through them, see them and know them by name. When you come down to a child and you greet them by name, you are making a connection that may be there for the next 20 to 25 years. Because when that child later on needs a model or a mentor, and they're not speaking to their parents about important things anymore, because a study I read again this week, that children, when they get to about the age of 12 or 13, up until about that age, the voices of their mothers are prominent in their heads. At that age, the voices of others become more prominent. And in our society, the media is screaming with a voice that is so counter our kingdom culture. And if there are not voices in the church that are replacing the mother's voice, that is leading these children into a kingdom culture, that voice will drown out whatever mothers and fathers have established in their children. And so there need to be those other voices that are taking over to a large degree in their lives of parents. So remember, that little greeting could establish a relationship that lasts a very long time. Take a personal interest in those children. So it's not just how you, Ethan, how you, Olivia. How was your week? What did you do? Did you have good friendship time this week? Ask them if they've heard the Lord speak to them this week. You may be surprised by the revelation they have. I remember when my boys were little, I sometimes used to ask them, what did you dream? Because I knew they didn't add much to their dreams because they just had this dream. But when they related to me, I could go, that's interesting. Because I knew what was perhaps going on in the church or whatever. They didn't realize they were relaying something to me that had prophetic significance. As you begin to communicate and see them and use their names, you have an opportunity to, as they speak to you, you have an opportunity to also impart wisdom and teach them with discernment, because they're going to be saying things to you. We had a situation this week where Harper, my eldest grandchild, didn't want to take her medicine. I don't like it. I don't want to take it. I said, but Baba, it's good for you. No, I don't. It's not nice. So the deduction's not nice. It can't be good for you. I said, baby, life is hard, and sometimes we have to do things we don't like doing, but they're good for us. But if you don't engage with her and see what's hassling, I don't have an opportunity then to steward her heart and shepherd her heart. And so we need to be able to talk to children, to shepherd their hearts, to see how they're thinking. Second point, love and honor them. Do you prepare for your kids' lessons in the same manner that you would prepare if you were asked to preach on a Sunday? Because by doing that, well, you are honoring the children. Love them, and they will pick it up. They will pick up when you haven't really prepared and you've just thrown something together. And they perceive it as a dishonor. They may not be able to verbalize it that way. Because, kids they don't always have the vocabulary to put to their emotions and feelings. So I've learned with our little ones, I listen to what they're saying, and then I join it together. And I'll give you an example later on. But it then leads me to the root of an issue. Sometimes kids, because they don't have vocabulary to say what they need to say, and one of the examples is during COVID. Well, I'm still in COVID, but you know what I mean, the hard lockdown stuff. A lot of parents are experiencing problems with their children, behavior problems, crying, emotional. And I noticed, and both John and I, through Zoom calls, we're noticing, in a second, if we'd have a comm thing through Zoom, parents were being quite harsh with their kids. And so I was like, there's a problem here. You know what was happening? Parents were experiencing depression and anger and frustration. Children were doing exactly the same thing, except they couldn't tell you, I'm angry or frustrated. So when you're 3 years old and suddenly you can't connect with your friends, your interpretation of that is my friends don't love me anymore. So what do? I cry. I think my friends don't love me. Mommy, my friends don't love me anymore. Why don't they love you? Because they're not coming to visit me. Start playing up. Kids that are, they're not able to see family members, and so they start throwing tantrums. And they can't tell you, I'm missing my granny or my nana, my papa. They just know, I don't feel good. And so I start throwing a tantrum. And if you're not reading it well, now I'm not talking about proper discipline things here. I'm talking about children not always able to verbalize their emotions. And so we need to be aware of those kind of things. Be helpful and kind. When children are in distress, love them and honor them by being helpful and kind. Sometimes they're battling with things. Don't just tell them to get on with it. Come down and just speak to them. Help them through the process. Even if you verbally guide them through a process, be prepared to do that. Remember, as Dion said, even if you're not directly involved in kids' ministry, you are. And so my third point is monkey see, monkey do. That's it. When we're shepherding the hearts of children, they learn how to imitate us. So we often said, okay, so if your kids imitated the way you worship on a Sunday, how's that going to look for the church? You know, standing at the back with your hands in your pockets. How are your kids going to imitate that? And what does that hold for the future of City on a Hill if all the kids end up standing at the back with their hands in their pockets? We're here to model. Monkey see, monkey do. We remember we're shepherding their hearts so that we can lead them to the great shepherd, so that he is able to shepherd their hearts. So in all that we do, reflect Jesus. Reflect the kingdom. Another point, we shepherd their hearts by entering their world. If they have things on at school and you leading classes, check in. Rugby matches, sports games. Can we attend? Have you got a concert on, can we be there? Enter their world. Know what's going on in their worlds. Display a sense of humor and imagination with children. They laugh at different things. Get into their world. Take it further. With our little ones as well, and as they get older, there's different things they're involved with. I mean, I think it's very important that we're consistently aware of what their world looks like and understand it and know it. Because there's a lot that our kids are encountering today that if we're ignorant, they're going to land up in places on the internet that you don't want them to be. So if you're aware of what they're watching, what they're seeing, what their world looks like, and you're kind of aware of where the trends are at, you're able to enter into their world in a healthy manner and disciple them in a healthy way. Very recently, we had a situation where some of the kids got into anime. Now, anime is anime. It's Japanese sort of cartooning kind of stuff. The problem is, so the parents are like, oh, the kids are watching anime, except there's a division of anime that's actually pornography. And it just suddenly takes them in to pornography that's with cartooning, with the same type of anime characters. And that's where some of these kids landed up. Because parents weren't even aware, not in the world, don't know that anime has become a thing. And so parents engaging, knowing, you as teachers knowing, what are the kids watching? What are they doing? How is social media influencing them? I mean, we've got to be aware all the time that our little ones are sometimes watching stuff on YouTube, and a lot of it is actually a promotion of toys. They watch these kids playing with these toys, and it's quite innocent, really, except that it is creating in them a culture of greed. Because I want that toy, and I want that Barbie, and no, at my next birthday, will you buy me the gymnastic Barbie? Because why? This is being fed to them. So to know, what are they? Get in there, know what makes them laugh. And engage with them on that. Enter their world. When they're playing games, when you see the boys playing soccer, get in there amongst them and play with them. Because you're shepherding their hearts at the same time. There's a display to them of, I love you, I'm interested in you, Jesus loves you, Jesus is interested in you. Create experiences and memories for them. When you enter their world, create experiences and memories that the children will go back to. Remember, I remember with our kids, they did the salty plays way back when. I saw a Facebook memory come up the other day of a salty play with a whole lot of the kids from Storehouse Days, which was the church that we planted out of in Port Elizabeth, and so did Andrew and so did Brad Verena. But our kid, that's a memory for them. That was a memory created for them by a woman called Nuncia Taylor, who did the salty play with them. And it's so funny. I look at that little picture the other day, and they still connected, most of these kids. Some of them are married to each other. At least, as I looked at that, there are at least 2 couples that have come out of that. And at that age, they were probably about 8 or 9. One wonders sometimes with those experiences that were created, those times that those kids were practicing their plays together, did that somehow create something for future marital partnerships? We don't know. But they're healthy partnerships. One of them, the guys, Graham Preston, is leading a church now in PE, took over from his dad. We shepherd them by including them in the church services. Ask them to pray if they're willing. Include them in communities. Don't just send them to the room with an iPad. Encourage them to share in community. That's why in Josh Gen, every week we send out a devotional that's related to the story, goes right throughout Josh Gen. But those can be used in the community to create a connection. Because then it's like, oh, we heard that you guys, or we saw that you guys did this in kids' church on Sunday. Adults, do you know the story? What do you think you learned from it? Children, what did you think? Immediately, we connecting adults and children who both learned something from the same story. And the message we're sending to the children is, this isn't just about the big people. We're learning too from the same stories, and they're learning too. We shepherd their hearts by being honest with them, by being truthful and transparent, and encouraging the same from them. So, when you have disciplined a child or said something to a child, and you've made a mistake, say sorry. That honesty and transparency encourages the same in them. And this last 2 weeks or so, I had a bangle, a bracelet that my dad gave to my mom on their 25th wedding anniversary. And so my mom had given it to me. It was incredibly special to me. And somehow it's just disappeared. And Harper was standing at my dressing table, and she knew I was looking for this bracelet. And I said to her, no, Harper, baby, Nana can't find her bracelet anywhere. And that bracelet was very special to me. And she looked at me, and I said, and it's made my heart sore. And she looked at me and she said, I'm so sorry, Nana. But in that moment, she learned that it's okay to lose something precious and be sad about it and to empathize. But to know I'm not devastated. She could see how I was handling it, but I was honest with her and transparent. And hoping in that when something is enough for her, she's going to be able to say to me, Nana, this child broke my toy, and I'm sad about it. And me to be able to say to her, I'm so sorry, Baba. But you know what? We're going to forgive them for doing that. Just creates those places of just intimacy. And so when you're working with kids, the one thing they love to hear is stories about your life. And even where you messed up. In the lessons, be honest and transparent. When I was a little boy, this is what I did. Set the felt on fire, and the fire brigade had to come. And they're like, and what happened? And my dad gave me a big hiding. Really? So that just creates those opportunities for them to know the stories, to understand it, and also creates a connection with them. Observe children. Shepherd their hearts by observing them. Have you noticed a change in their behavior? Has their demeanor changed? Something might have happened. Be aware of what has happened, and then be empathetic. So a good example was recently our son and daughter-in-law have sold their flat, and they've bought the parents' house in Melkbos. So they moved there for about a month until all the building plans and everything were sorted out, and they then had to move again whilst the builders move in to completely renovate the house. So these little ones have moved from their flat to the granny and grandpa's house, now to their auntie's house. I noticed Harper's just got quieter and quieter and quieter, and she's not herself. I said to Dion, there's something wrong with Harper. But now I can't fathom out what is it. What is going on? So then she starts saying things like, we were supposed to take them somewhere, and we were going to go to the Spur. And usually they're very excited. They're going to the Spur. They're going to the nice play area there. And I say, baby, where are we going to go? She says, to the Spur. But I can see she's not happy. She says, I want to go to Nana Papa's house. Okay. Then, so that's interesting. So then something else happened. And she said something about Nana and Papa's house. There was about a third thing happened, and then she said, Nana and Papa's house. And then I went, okay. The only thing that has stayed stable in all this time is Nana and Papa's house. Toys at Nana and Papa's house. Everything is changing. So she couldn't tell me that she was feeling unsettled. Back to verbalizing. I'm feeling unsettled, not sure where we belong. I'm missing my toys. I'm missing my room. I'm missing my bunk bed. All she knew, the one place she felt secure, was Nana Papa's house. And so we said to our son, come and stay with us for a while, just so that we can stabilize them a little bit, so they can be in Nana Papa's house. That's listening, following the clues, and getting back to root. As I said, with your kids, get to know the kids well that are amongst you and in your classes. And this is why it's important for teachers from one week to the next, connect with information regarding the children. Don't just hand over a lesson and say, okay, you deal with them this week, I dealt with them this. Because little thing happened this week. Just James said his tummy was sore. Can you pray for me? Next week the teacher can say, James, they prayed for your tummy. How's it? Is it much better? And no, it's still sore. You pass that information on next week. James's tummy is still sore. Then we go to Mom, Dad, is there something wrong with James? The last 3 weeks his tummy is being sore. The root might be something's going down at school. Maybe he's being bullied. No, and the only way he can describe what is happening is my tummy is sore. And teachers and parents need to be clued in. And you play an integral role in that cog of being mindful of the children, watching their behavior, see if there's changes. Communicate between each other. Communicate with the parents and try and get to what the problem is. In the same way that you would counsel and disciple an adult and shepherd their hearts, you're doing the same with a child here. You're just dealing with it in a slightly different way because they might not be able to express exactly what the root of their issue is. Even adults can't. Half the time you have to ask them a whole whack of questions before you get to what the root was. Importantly, pray for your children. Discern the Lord's heart for them and then tell them what God said about them. Because then they feel seen, and not only by you, but God knows my name. He has a message for me. It's going to enhance their relationship with you, but more than anything else, it's going to enhance their relationship with the great shepherd. As they know that He cares for them, He has a message to give them, and even as it comes via you, that's great. And then train them to hear from the great shepherd themselves, so that He can shepherd their hearts. But essentially, you're going to model something about the shepherd who speaks to them, and you actually being trusted to relay that message. So we want to empower our children by equipping them well, and the way we do that is by shepherding their hearts well. Love them, listen to them, and lead them. And if we do that, we're going to fashion the future face of the church.
Thank you, Kimmy.